Hey, Frogprince Rana here, and thank you for dropping by. They can now kill the vaccinated like a lottery system with the push of a button thanks to phones and Bluetooth. Oh dear. With over 5.4 million deaths due to the pandemic, these freaking turds are still at it. Today, we will look at a video being circulated by an a-hole calls himself Freedom Warriors. Yes, it is a plural. My guess is one turd wasn't enough. And the video is by one called Ricardo Delgado. What can I say about this video? I've seen many dumb videos in my lifetime, and this probably has to be dumber than anything I've ever seen. Even worse than Daniel Pratt or Leo Flat Earther. Now that is saying something. Apparently people still fall for this crap, so let's do our part and thoroughly unmask these charlatans for who they are. So let's start with the shit show.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ricardo Delgado, and I am the founder and director of La Quinta Columna. All the vaccines tested, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Janssen, and Moderna, contain exclusively nanotechnology. We have found nanorouters, which also emit MAC addresses that can be registered with Bluetooth wireless technology by just using your own mobile phone and the help of an app. We have found nano antennas and plasmonic antennas for the amplification of these signals.
So much stupid in less than 30 seconds, and at the same time, so bloody easy to debunk, and easy to check by almost anyone. Couple of things to clarify first. I have both doses of vaccine and one booster. And for those of you who are new to my channel, I'm a programmer by profession, and one of my many hobbies is electronics. With those two passions together, I have had the pleasure of working on many projects involving Bluetooth technology. On screen you're seeing my bedroom where the light is being controlled using my home automation code using backend PHP and a web server. So when I hear this Ricardo guy babble, all I can do is roll my eyes. Well, that being said, let's debunk it first, and then we'll discuss the other problems one needs to address, even if the killing is the end goal. Seriously, it is very easy to test. The crazy thing about Ricardo is, he throws in some technical words, and some of those are actually correct. So every network device, may it be a network card, a Bluetooth device, and such, has something called a MAC address. To quote Wiki, a Media Access Control Address or MAC address is a unique identifier assigned to a network interface controller for use as a network address in communications within a network segment. Note that unique part, and thus a network card is one of the parameter Microsoft uses when it forces reactivation on hardware changes. You can also use it for additional security in Wi-Fi, where the MAC address is whitelisted. To find out if we do indeed have some kind of Bluetooth-enabled device nearby, to begin with, we need a Bluetooth-enabled device. It can be a PC, tablet, mobile, and such. We also need a software that is typically called a Bluetooth scanner. Note that we do have dedicated hardware that does the same job, but for most people, a software is much more accessible. On Windows platform, you can use Microsoft's Bluetooth LE Explorer, Nerdsoft's Bluetooth View, Acrylic Suite, and so on. BT Scanner on Linux. On Mac there is Bluetooth Explorer, Lightblue, iStumbler. On iOS we have BLE, BT Inspector. Finally on Android there is Bluetooth Scanner, BLE Scanner. The list is practically endless. Every single of this app behaves the same way. Once started, you just initiate the scan and wait for the results. Typically the result would show you the previously mentioned MAC address, RSSI or signal strength, and depending on the device, you may also get some details on type, name, manufacturer, and UUID. Some devices can also broadcast its actual location. Now I have obviously ran the apps in all OS except Linux. As my Linux box is the same machine with Windows, my result would be identical. One question might arise on why I have different results on different devices. Well, Bluetooth devices communicate using low-power radio waves on a frequency band between 2.4 GHz and 2.4835 GHz, and the devices traditionally have one omnidirectional antenna. Now, obviously, a larger antenna leads to a greater distance it can communicate with. With a high transmit power and antenna gain, it is possible to get Bluetooth data over a kilometer. But for most devices, it is more like 10 meters, and it would also vary depending on obstacles such as person, metal, wall, etc., or electromagnetic environment. Let's look at my Windows result first. I have 8 results. 3 of those are from my Apple devices. The one with HTC name, well, those 2 are from my SteamVR setup. The one manufactured by Google is a Google Nest speaker. The one with the name 8AP is one of my gamepad, which basically leaves one item without any visible details in basic result. When we view device attributes, we see that it has a complete local name of iColorLive, and this is the light I showed you earlier. Bluetooth was originally designed for continuously streaming data applications. That means that you can exchange a lot of data at a close range and typically used for a wireless headset, speakers, keyboard and such. Due to the requirement, it also uses a lot of power. Now for applications that only needs to periodically exchange small amounts of data, there is Bluetooth Low Energy or Bluetooth 4.0. With low energy consumptions, applications can run on a smaller battery for a longer amount of time. So if we did have some kind of nanorouters within our body, it makes sense for it to be BLE. And the results we are seeing is from BLE devices. But to be safe, let's also see the results from the OG Bluetooth scanner. Now we are seeing 3 results. The first one is from Sony Bravia TV, the second one from my computer, and the third is obviously my gamepad. On OS X, I get similar results, but with my controller switched off, we don't get 8AP anymore. Well, on screen you can see results from different applications while we move on. My suggestion would be, if you have a portable device, maybe it would be better to stand in the middle of a field when doing this test and thus getting less results, as some apps, especially on mobile, are not very helpful and doesn't show you the MAC address by default, and at times unable to get additional details. In one screenshot, you would see my Apple devices listed as unnamed, and only by comparing the MAC we would know which device it is. There are some technologies like RFID or radio frequency identification that does not need a power supply, called passive tags. Those work by powering up by the actual reader. You may already have some devices like contactless cards. Again, it depends on the power and antenna, but typically can be read from a distance up to 1 meter. But these are one-way data, meaning from the tag to the reader. So when we hear thousands of Swedes are inserting microchips under their skin, we are talking about RFIDs. Calling it microchips may work for laymen, but it makes us professionals cringe. Anyway, this obviously do not need power supply, can only provide limited data, and has a very limited range. Now, if there is any interest, I'll do a video on that. But back to the topic at hand. Bluetooth by design needs a power supply. It also needs an antenna. For a given frequency, the antenna's effective area is proportional to the power gain, which basically means size does matter. Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, along with researchers at the University of Stuttgart in Germany, have created a nano antenna with the purpose of figuring out a way to measure interactions on the atomic scale so that an extremely sensitive gas sensor, one that might be able to detect a single particle, may be created, but one to communicate in Bluetooth protocol is still in the realm of science fiction. Currently in commercial market, WCM.01W 2.4 GHz antenna is the smallest external Wi-Fi Bluetooth antenna with a dimension of 19.8 by 14.3 by 16.4 mm. Now I can completely understand that anti-vaxxers claiming that these nano antennas are classified and not available to general public, but ask them to explain gain and efficiency, and all you will hear is cricket. I have completely skipped over power consumptions, as I'm not qualified in any sense to talk about bioelectricity. But when talking about Bluetooth, as mentioned earlier, power is a contributor on distance, so several microvolt just wouldn't cut it. Well, enough about Bluetooth. Let's move on to what else this ASAT has to say.
We have also identified nanorectennas, which act as rectifier bridges of alternating, direct current, codecs, and certain logic gates for the encryption of these nanocommunications emitted from the inoculated individual to a remote server.
Yeah, sure you did. And that is why there is no visual display of packets or any details regarding the remote server. In all seriousness, if I locate something inside me transmitting data to a server, trust me, I'll be showing the actual transfer data with all the details I can muster.
The primary material for the elaboration of these microstructural complexes is graphene oxide, the presence of which is decisive for the self-assembly of these structural complexes.
Oh, not this again. Well, I've already done 2 videos on graphene oxide, and links are in description. Quick recap follows. Well, these allegations are based on an analysis by a professor, Dr. Pablo Campra Madrid in Spain, which has been rejected by experts. He obtained what he himself described as non-conclusive results after studying one vial. As stated on page 3 and page 8 of his report, Campra analyzed samples of the Pfizer vial of unknown origin with 2 types of microscopes. The vial was sent to him by messenger service. The paper does not provide further details regarding the vaccine dose's source. In his report, Campra said he compared images of this vaccine liquid under the microscopes with images of graphene oxide published in scientific journals. He concluded that they looked similar. Experts consulted by Spanish fact-checker Maldita.es said images could show any material. In his study, Campra Madrid himself acknowledges that the microscope doesn't provide conclusive evidence and that the analysis comes from a single, limited sample, one of unknown origin and traceability. Matthew Diasco, an American Chemical Society Congressional Science and Engineering Fellow, took to Twitter to criticize Campra Madrid's report. Among other arguments, Diasco said that liquids containing graphene or graphene oxide in any significant amount tend to be dark brown or black. If the shots had even 1% graphene or graphene oxide, where the claim states it has 99.9%, the liquid would look black or at least dark. The Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine is a transparent or yellowish liquid, as are other available COVID-19 shots in the US, Moderna, Janssen, and AstraZeneca. Basically, no one has been able to reproduce this result, aka peer-reviewed. The whole claim is false. So if the vaccine doesn't have this elusive graphene oxide, the rest is just technical bullshit.
And the Tesla phoresis mechanism, which are microwave electromagnetic fields emitted from mobile phone signals with different frequency ranges.
Obviously, 5G is also thrown into the mix. According to a GSA report, 58 countries had 5G networks as of June 2021, up from 38 about a year ago. So when the rumor started that 5G is causing the virus, my first question to one of these people was, how is it affecting in countries without 5G network? Obviously they don't have an answer to that. It is just another talking point. This is basically Gish Gallop, a technique whereby someone argues a cause by hurling as many different half-truths and no-truths into a very short space of time so that their opponent cannot hope to combat each point in real time. And within 2 minutes of the video, they have managed to hit as many points as possible, and there are more to come.
El óxido de grafeno inyectado dentro del cuerpo adquiere propiedades.
Graphene oxide injected into the body acquires magnetic properties in contact with hydrogen and living cells. This is why most vaccinated people have this exacerbated magnetism at the point of inoculation, and subsequently in the upper solar plexus and the skull. Graphene oxide is detected in the body by our immune system as if it were a pathogen.
Well, I have a video on this as well. Again, link would be in description. To quickly recap it, Dr. Tenpenny, a doctor from Cleveland and anti-vaxxer, told lawmaker that the vaccine magnetizes people and interferes with 5G cellular tower. She also claimed that more than 5,000 people had died in the USA as a result of vaccines, but there is no evidence supporting that claim. Ms. Tenpenny was referring to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, which is a self-reported database intended to track medical incidents tied to vaccine use. Often used by anti-vaxxers to justify the opposition to the vaccines, VAERS itself says it should not be used as a primary source for determining whether or not a death was caused by a vaccine. Just a quick explanation of what is happening. Almost anyone, vaccinated or not, could stick a key to their skin due to capillary action and the weight of the key being spread across the surface of the body. We have factors like sweat and not having hairy skin, and as Randy showed, talcum powder would show exactly what would happen without those factors. Next, we have a couple of screenshots of players and coaches who have died last year, and the video implies that it has to do with graphene oxide and vaccine. That does not exist. Now, I did try to find out more, but information is quite limited. For Steven Zolovac, who was a Serbian basketball player, had suffered a stroke back in November 14, 2021, while practicing with the team. He passed away on December 5, 2021, after being hospitalized for several days in very bad shape. His actual cause of death is said to be a brain hemorrhage, according to his Wikipedia profile. While the deaths are unfortunate, and I'm not downplaying it, but attributing it to the vaccine, and for it to be the case, wouldn't we be seeing a lot more of these incidents? Over 3.8 billion people worldwide have received both shots of the vaccine. If every vaccine had this poison, even 1% death would lead to 38 million deaths from it. Rest of the video keeps talking about graphene oxide and scaremongering. Well, if I put up some numbers on how many people died every year from automobile accident and then blame it on vaccine, I should be justifiably called out with, what does it have to do with the vaccine? For this video, it would be the same deal. We can ignore all the hyperbole and scare tactics with the same simple question, as there is no graphene oxide in any of the coronavirus vaccine.
Moreover, this graphene oxide can be stimulated remotely and wirelessly, using for this purpose the implementation of the new 4G, 4G Plus and 5G technology.
4G, 4G Plus y 5G.
All vaccinated people send their data to an external server, controlled by artificial intelligence, probably financed by Mr. Elon Musk.
Financiada por el señor Elon Musk.
I have nothing else to say. Yes, we send our data to a server, at least in UK, when we get vaccinated. NHS keeps a record of it, and as different surgeries around UK has access to that data, it is bloody obvious that it is stored somewhere, and it has nothing to do with 4G, 5G nonsense. And if Elon Musk is handling it, we can all rest in peace. Knowing how he operates, nothing will ever come out of it. Well, this is being a super long video, and there is so much of this nonsense I can take. Normally I'm against capital punishment, but for these people peddling horrific nonsense, I think I can make an exemption. So please stop listening to the scaremongering videos and do not take them seriously. With some quick research you'd be seeing holes in their propaganda, not to mention obvious lies. Vaccine saves life. I have a bunch of videos in my channel debunking other bullshit you might hear from anti-vaxxers, and I would urge you to check those out. Vaccines are preventing deaths and also protects people from overall infection. Just get vaccinated. Well, that's all for this video. Drop a like if you're vaccinated and please share it around so hopefully we can convince others to take the vaccine as well. If you want to be super awesome, please consider subscribing and so on. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated and helps with YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for watching. Wherever you are, have a safe day. Signing off.